Imagine someone offering you a $100,000 tip. Most people would jump at the chance, right? But what if I told you a janitor, earning an average wage, actually turned down that life-changing sum? Stick around to uncover the shocking, heartwarming, and utterly unexpected reason why this ordinary man said no to a fortune. This is the story of why the janitor refused a $100,000 tip. The lobby of the Peachtree Grand Hotel in downtown Atlanta buzzed with morning activity. Businesspeople rushed toward meetings, tourists studied maps, and bellhops wheeled luggage across gleaming marble floors. In the corner near the elevators, Tom Bennett pushed his cleaning cart, wiping down surfaces and emptying trash bins. Tom was 52 years old, with graying hair and hands calloused from 3 decades of hard work. He had been cleaning floors at the Peachtree Grand for 12 years, working the early morning shift from 5 a.m. until 1 p.m. Most guests never noticed Tom. He was part of the invisible workforce that kept the hotel running smoothly. Tom did not mind being invisible. He had learned long ago that honest work had its own dignity, whether people noticed or not. But on this particular Tuesday morning in October, Tom was about to become very visible indeed. Tom was cleaning near the elevator bank when he heard a commotion. A well-dressed woman in her 30s had stumbled out of the elevator, her face pale and sweating. She clutched her chest, gasping for air. Other guests backed away, uncertain what to do. Tom dropped his cleaning cloth and moved quickly toward her. He asked if she was all right, if she could hear him. The woman tried to speak but could not form words. Her eyes were wide with panic. Tom recognized the signs immediately. His father had died of a heart attack when Tom was 25, and he had taken CPR training afterward, updating it every 2 years without fail. Tom called out for someone to dial 911 right away. He gently helped the woman to the floor, supporting her head. Her breathing was shallow and rapid. Her lips were turning slightly blue. Tom checked for a pulse. It was there but irregular and weak. The woman suddenly went limp, her eyes rolling back. Tom checked again. No pulse. No breathing. Without hesitation, Tom began chest compressions, counting aloud as he worked. 30 compressions, 2 rescue breaths. 30 compressions, 2 rescue breaths. He kept going, his arms burning with effort, sweat dripping down his face. Hotel staff stood frozen, watching. Guests pulled out phones, recording the scene. The front desk clerk was on the phone with emergency services, relaying information. Tom kept working. 1 minute passed. 2 minutes. 3 minutes. His shoulders ached but he did not stop. He had learned in CPR training that you never stop until professionals arrive where you physically cannot continue. After what felt like an eternity but was actually 4.5 minutes, the woman gasped. Her eyes fluttered open. She coughed, drawing in ragged breaths. Tom carefully turned her on her side, supporting her head. He told her to just breathe, nice and easy, that help was coming. Paramedics arrived 6 minutes later, rushing in with their equipment. They took over, checking vitals, asking questions, preparing the woman for transport. As they loaded her onto the stretcher, one paramedic turned to Tom and said he had saved her life. Another minute and they would be having a very different conversation. Tom nodded, still breathing hard from the exertion. He watched as they wheeled the woman toward the ambulance. Then, quietly, he picked up his cleaning cloth and went back to work. The hotel manager, Mrs. Patterson, found him 20 minutes later, still cleaning. She told Tom that what he did was incredible. The woman's name was Jennifer Caldwell. Her father was Richard Caldwell, the CEO of Caldwell Industries, one of the wealthiest men in Georgia. Tom had just saved his daughter's life. Tom shrugged and said he just did what needed doing. Anyone would have done the same. But Mrs. Patterson shook her head. Not everyone would have. Most people froze. Tom acted. That made all the difference. Hello friends, welcome to our story. Before we start, please like this video and subscribe. Also, tell us in the comments where are you watching from? Atlanta? Charlotte? Memphis? Detroit? Chicago? We want to know. So settle in and get comfortable, because what you are about to hear will restore your faith in the power of character over cash. To understand why Tom Bennett refused that money, you need to understand where he came from. Tom grew up in Macon, Georgia, in a small wooden house where his parents, James and Sarah Bennett, raised him on love and principles that money could not buy. James worked at the local paper mill for 32 years. Sarah took in sewing and mending, her old Singer machine humming late into the night. They were poor by any financial measure, but rich in the ways that mattered most. Tom's mother had a saying she repeated constantly while working her sewing machine. She would tell young Tommy that there are two kinds of rich in this world. There is money rich, and there is soul rich. Money rich is nice, but soul rich is what lets you sleep peaceful at night. Soul rich is what you take with you when everything else is gone. Those words soaked into Tom's bones like rain into thirsty ground. The Bennetts lived simply. Dinner was often beans and cornbread, fried chicken on Sundays. Tom wore hand-me-down clothes from church donation boxes. His shoes were resoled until the cobbler knew his foot size by heart. But every evening, the family sat down together for dinner. Every Sunday, they attended Greater Hope Baptist Church. Every night, Tom's parents tucked him in with prayers and reminders that character mattered more than comfort. When Tom was 17, something happened that would shape the rest of his life. His father had a co-worker at the mill named Mr. Henderson, a man who had worked there for 40 years. Mr. Henderson had saved carefully for retirement, keeping his money in a savings account at the local bank. One day, a bank employee embezzled funds from multiple accounts, including Mr. Henderson's entire life savings of $68,000. The theft devastated Mr. Henderson. At 70 years old, he had lost everything he had worked for. The bank launched an investigation, but the employee had fled, and the money seemed gone forever. Tom watched his father's response. James Bennett did not have much money, but he organized the mill workers. Each employee contributed what they could. $5, $10, $20 from families who did not have much to spare themselves. They collected $14,000 and presented it to Mr. Henderson at a gathering at the mill. Tom never forgot Mr. Henderson's tears, or his father's words that evening. James told his son that money comes and goes. Jobs come and go. But how you treat people when they are down, that defines who you are. Mr. Henderson needed help. They helped. Simple as that. Young Tom asked if this would not make things harder for their own family. James said maybe for a little while. But he would sleep good that night knowing they did right. That was worth more than any amount in a bank account. Those words became Tom's compass. Tom graduated high school and went to work at a furniture factory. He married his sweetheart, Lisa, when he was 23. They had 2 daughters, Keisha and Aaliyah. Tom worked hard, providing modestly but steadily for his family. They lived in a small house in Macon, never wealthy but always comfortable enough. When Tom was 25, his father died of a massive heart attack at work. James Bennett was 56 years old. At the funeral, dozens of mill workers came to pay respects, many sharing stories of how James had helped them over the years. Small kindnesses, loans that were never expected to be repaid, shifts covered when someone was sick, words of encouragement during hard times. Standing at his father's grave, Tom made a silent promise. He would live the way his father had lived. He would measure his life not by what he accumulated but by how he treated people. The years passed. Tom's daughters grew up. Keisha became a teacher. Aaliyah became a nurse. Tom and Lisa were proud of their girls, proud of the women they had become. When the furniture factory closed down, Tom moved his family to Atlanta where there were more opportunities. He took the job at the Peachtree Grand Hotel, cleaning floors and bathrooms. Work that some people might look down on, but work that Tom approached with quiet dignity. Lisa worked as a cafeteria manager at a local elementary school. Together, they made enough to pay bills, save a little, and help their daughters when needed. They attended Riverside Baptist Church every Sunday. They hosted Sunday dinners where extended family gathered. They lived simply and peacefully, following the principles Tom's parents had taught him. Tom updated his CPR certification every 2 years, a practice he had started after his father's death. He told himself it was just being prepared, being responsible. He never imagined he would actually need to use it. Until that Tuesday morning in October. 3 days after the incident, Tom received a message that Jennifer Caldwell wanted to see him. The hotel arranged for Tom to visit during his lunch break. He took the bus to the hospital, still wearing his work uniform, and found his way to Jennifer's private room. Jennifer was sitting up in bed, looking much healthier than when Tom had last seen her. Her father, Richard Caldwell, sat in a chair beside her. When Tom entered, both of them stood. Jennifer thanked Tom for coming. She wanted to thank him personally. The doctors told her that if Tom had not started CPR when he did, she would not be there. He had saved her life. Tom shifted uncomfortably and said he was just glad she was all right. He asked how she was feeling. Jennifer said she was much better, thanks to him. She had a heart condition she did not know about. The doctors caught it now, and she was on medication. She would be fine. But only because Tom knew what to do and did not hesitate. Richard Caldwell extended his hand. Tom shook it. Richard told Tom that his daughter was everything to him. She was his only child. When he thought about how close he came to losing her, and how Tom prevented that, he could not find adequate words. Thank you did not seem like enough. Tom said Richard was welcome, but honestly, he just did what anyone would do. Richard said that was not true, and Tom knew it. Most people panic. Most people wait for someone else to act. Tom did not. He saved her life, and Richard wanted to do something for Tom in return. Tom shook his head and said that was not necessary. Seeing Richard's daughter healthy was all the thanks he needed. But Richard persisted. Over the next week, he researched Tom's background. He learned about Tom's modest salary, his long years of service, his 2 daughters, his simple life. Richard decided that he wanted to change Tom's life the way Tom had saved Jennifer's. That is how they ended up in the hotel lobby 2 weeks later, with Richard holding an envelope containing a check for $100,000 and Tom refusing to take it. Richard and Tom sat across from each other in the hotel coffee shop. Richard placed the envelope on the table between them. Tom left it there, untouched. Richard told Tom he needed him to explain this. He was offering money that could change Tom's life. Tom could pay off his house. He could help his daughters. He could retire early. Why would he not take it? Tom took a sip of coffee, gathering his thoughts. He asked Richard a question. When Richard built his company, when he made his first big deal, his first $1 million, how did that feel? Richard looked surprised by the question. He said it felt incredible. Like all his hard work had paid off. Like he had accomplished something meaningful. Tom asked if someone had just handed Richard that $1 million, no effort required, would it have felt the same? Richard paused, thinking. He said no, he supposed it would not have. Tom said that was part of why he could not take the money. The life he had, modest as it might look to Richard, Tom built it with his own hands. He earned every dollar. He made choices, some hard ones, to live according to principles his parents taught him. If he took Richard's money, it changed what those choices meant. It suggested he was waiting for a payoff all along. Richard said Tom was not waiting for anything. He saved Jennifer because it was the right thing to do. This money did not change that. Tom shook his head gently. With respect, he said, it does. Right now, what he did for Richard's daughter was pure. He helped another human being in crisis. No calculation, no expectation, just one person helping another. The moment he accepted payment for it, it became a transaction. It became something he did that earned him a reward. And that changed everything. Richard leaned back, studying Tom's face. He said Tom really believed that. Tom said he did. His daddy taught him something when he was young. He said there are 2 kinds of rich. There is money rich and soul rich. Money rich is nice, but soul rich is what lets you sleep at night. Tom's voice grew softer, more reflective. When he was 17, he watched his father and his co-workers give money they could barely spare to help an old man who had lost his savings. His father came home that night with less money in his pocket but more peace in his heart. Tom saw the difference. He learned that some things you do because they are right, not because they might pay off someday. Richard said Tom was not a wealthy man. This money could help him and his family tremendously. Tom agreed. He was not wealthy by Richard's standards. But he had a roof over his head that he paid for with his own work. He had a wife he loved who had been by his side for 29 years. He had 2 daughters who became a teacher and a nurse, good women helping people every day. He had his health, his faith, and the ability to look at himself in the mirror each morning and respect who he saw there. Tom's eyes met Richard's steadily. If he took the money, what did he gain? Some comfort, sure. Some financial ease. But what did he lose? He lost the knowledge that he was the kind of man who does right without expecting reward. He lost the purity of that moment when he helped Richard's daughter. He lost something he could not get back, something worth more than any check Richard could write. The coffee shop had grown quiet. Other customers were listening now, drawn in by the unusual conversation. Tom continued. His mama used to say that character is what you do when nobody is watching and nobody is paying. Well, people were watching when he helped Miss Jennifer, but nobody was paying. And he would like to keep it that way. He would like to know that he was still the man his parents raised him to be, someone who helps because it is right, not because there is profit in it. Richard sat silently for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was thick with emotion. He told Tom that he had spent his whole life in business. He had negotiated million-dollar deals, managed thousands of employees, built a company from nothing. And in all that time, he had learned that everything has a price. Everyone wants something. But here Tom was, refusing money that could change his life, and his reason was that it would diminish the value of a good deed. Richard shook his head in wonder. He did not know whether to think Tom was the wisest man he had ever met or completely out of his mind. Tom smiled. Maybe a little of both. But he was at peace with his choice. Richard asked if there was anything he could do for Tom. Anything at all. Tom thought for a moment. Actually, there was. The hospital where Richard's daughter recovered had a CPR training program that was underfunded. If Richard wanted to help, he could donate to that program. Help them train more people to respond in emergencies. That way, what happened with his daughter, the good that came from it, it spreads out. It helps more people. Richard's eyes lit up. That was brilliant. He would do more than that. He would establish a foundation to fund emergency response training throughout Atlanta. They would train thousands of people. And he would name it after Tom. Tom asked him please not to. That defeated the purpose. Just do the good work. Let it speak for itself. Richard laughed, a sound of genuine delight mixed with disbelief. He told Tom he was an extraordinary man. Tom said no, he was just ordinary. But he was raised by extraordinary people who taught him that how you live matters more than what you own. News of Tom's refusal spread through the hotel like wildfire. Some employees thought he was crazy. Others understood and respected his choice. Guests who heard the story asked to meet him, to shake his hand, to understand how someone could turn down that kind of money. Tom handled the attention with the same quiet dignity he brought to everything else. He showed up for work every day at 5 a.m. He cleaned floors and bathrooms. He treated every guest with courtesy and every task with thoroughness. But something had shifted. People saw Tom differently now. He was not invisible anymore. Guests greeted him by name. Co-workers asked his advice. The hotel management gave him a raise and additional responsibilities, not because of what he had refused but because they finally recognized the quality of person they had working among them all along. Richard Caldwell kept his promise. He established the Atlanta Emergency Response Foundation, funding CPR training, first aid courses, and emergency preparedness programs throughout the city. In the first year alone, over 5,000 people received free training. 3 months after the foundation launched, a woman trained through the program saved a child who was choking at a restaurant. 6 months later, a man trained through the program helped a neighbor having a stroke, getting him to the hospital in time to prevent permanent damage. Richard sent Tom updates about every life saved by people trained through the foundation. Each letter ended the same way. This is your legacy, Tom. The gift that keeps giving. One Sunday morning at Riverside Baptist Church, Pastor Williams asked Tom to share his story with the congregation. Tom rarely spoke in public, but he agreed, standing at the pulpit in his best suit, looking out at familiar faces. Tom told the congregation he had been asked to talk about why he refused Mr. Caldwell's money. Folks seemed to think it was complicated, but it was actually real simple. His parents taught him that character is built in small choices, everyday decisions about who you want to be. When he helped Miss Jennifer that morning, he did not think about reward. He thought about a human being who needed help. If he had taken money for it afterward, he would have made it about him and his benefit. But it was never about him. It was about doing what is right because it is right. He paused, looking around the church. He said, we live in a world that puts a price on everything. We are taught to ask what is in it for us, how can this benefit me, what will I get out of it? But some things should not have a price. Kindness should not cost anything, and it should not earn anything either. It should just be what we do for each other because we are all in this life together. An elderly woman in the front row nodded, tears in her eyes. Tom continued. He was not a rich man by the world's standards. But he slept well at night. He looked his wife in the eye and saw respect there. He watched his daughters help people through their work, and he knew they learned it from watching their parents and grandparents live with integrity. That is wealth you cannot spend and cannot lose. That is the inheritance that matters. The congregation erupted in applause. Tom stepped down from the pulpit, embarrassed by the attention but grateful for the community that understood what he had done and why it mattered. Months passed. Jennifer Caldwell made a full recovery, her heart condition managed with medication and lifestyle changes. She visited Tom at the hotel several times, bringing her young son to meet the man who had saved his mother's life. Jennifer told Tom she wanted her son to know him. She wanted him to understand that there are still people in this world who do good without expecting anything in return. Tom was a role model for the kind of man she hoped her son would become. Tom smiled at the boy, who looked at him with wide, curious eyes. He told the young man to just remember that being good to people does not cost you anything except a little time and attention. And what it gives you back is worth more than all the money in the world. Richard Caldwell and Tom became unlikely friends. Richard would stop by the hotel sometimes, not for business but just to have coffee with Tom, to talk about life and values and what mattered. In Tom, Richard found something he had been missing in his high-powered business world. Authenticity, integrity, and peace that came from living according to principles rather than profits. Richard told Tom he had made more money than he could spend in 10 lifetimes. But talking with Tom, understanding how he thought, it made him reconsider what success really meant. He was changing how he ran his company. Treating people better. Focusing on more than just the bottom line. Tom had influenced him more than he knew. Tom said he was glad. But that was all Richard. He just showed Richard what was already in his heart. At home, Tom and Lisa hosted Sunday dinners just like Tom's parents had done. Their daughters came with their families. Keisha brought her husband and 2 children. Aaliyah brought her fiancé. They crowded around the old dining table, sharing fried chicken and collard greens and cornbread, the same simple food that had nourished generations. Over dinner, the grandchildren asked Tom about the money he had refused. Tom's grandson said everybody at school talked about how he said no to all that money. Why did he do it? Tom set down his fork and looked at his grandson's earnest face. He said because, sweetheart, he wanted his grandson and granddaughter and cousins to grow up knowing that they were the kind of family that does right because it is right. Not because someone might pay them. He wanted them to understand that their character, their integrity, that is the most valuable thing they will ever own. Nobody can take it from them, but they can give it away if they are not careful. The boy thought about this. So Tom kept it by not taking the money? Tom said exactly. He kept the knowledge that he was the kind of person he wanted to be. And that was worth more than any amount of money could ever be. Lisa reached over and squeezed Tom's hand, her eyes shining with pride and love. She said Tom's grandfather was the richest man she knew. Not because of what was in his bank account, but because of what was in his heart. That is the story of Tom Bennett, the janitor who refused $100,000. This reminds us that not everything has a price, and not everything should. Tom understood something that many people spend their whole lives never learning. The most valuable things in life cannot be bought or sold. Integrity, character, peace of mind, self-respect. These things can only be earned through the choices we make every single day. Tom chose to keep his good deed pure, untainted by financial reward, and in doing so, he gained something far more valuable than money. He gained the certainty of his own character, the respect of his community, and a legacy that will outlive any bank account. He showed us that true wealth is measured not by what we accumulate but by who we are when nobody is watching and nobody is paying. If this story touched you today, share it with someone who needs to remember that character matters more than cash. Like, subscribe, and let us know in the comments, What is something you have done simply because it was right, with no expectation of reward? Thank you for watching. Until next time, may you always have the courage to choose integrity over income, principle over profit, and character over everything else. God bless.